Yo, what is up, guys? It's your boy back with another video, and today we're going to be talking about the debate between Amanda Seales and the 20 Black conservatives. What I originally wanted to do was to do a live reaction to it, but Jubilee told me basically to go suck a fat one, so that's not going to happen. So I figured this was the next best thing, because I did end up watching the video still, and I figured what would probably be the easiest thing to do was just to go through each of Amanda's claims and kind of go through, I guess, my opinions on him, and specifically like what are the things that support or don't support her claims just based off of what she said. And yeah, just go from there, because I do think some of the conservatives in the video kind of derailed the conversation at times and kind of changed it to different topics. So we're just going to strictly based off of the claims that she made, how legitimate I think they are. So her first claim is that it's undeniable that reparations are just and necessary. And I think where to start here is we need to get a definition for the word reparations. So reparations in this context, or just generally, I guess, means making of amends for a wrong that has been done by paying money or otherwise helping those who have been wronged. So obviously, I hope that we can all agree that slavery was wrong, right? So reparations would be saying that, hey, since America or the American government participated and allowed the slavery to go on, you thus owe the slaves, reparations for that. I mean, we know that initially what was promised to the slaves after the Civil War was the 40 acres and a mule, something that they ended up reneging on after the fact. So we know that was what was originally promised to the slaves that were free. And then I think another word that she also brings up that people don't really talk about is the fact that slavery isn't just a tragedy that happened. Slaves actually worked, right? Like they were actually doing work that they were not getting paid service for. And I like how she brought this up, that would also be considered to be a remuneration, meaning money paid for work that's owed, right? So, you do work, you don't get paid for it, you go take someone to court, they owe you oh my goodness, I cannot pronounce words today, but you get the gesture. So even on like a practical level, even if you take out the morality of saying that of slavery being wrong, just on a basic level, right? If the slaves did work that they didn't get paid for, they deserve compensation for it. And usually people that can argue against this will say that, oh, it's not practical at this point. It's going to mess up social cohesion. It's not fair that people that had nothing to do with it should pay for it, and yada, yada, yada. That's usually where people will go against that. And my real pushback to that is, one, the government at the time saw this through. The government at the time supported it. The government at the time, specifically I guess in the South, what's the word I'm looking for right now? They allowed it to happen. So if the government owes reparations, whether that's just what they owe. So it's really irrelevant if specific people had nothing to do with it, because it was an institutional problem. So if the institution was the problem, then the institution was the one that owes reparations. That's just my piece on it. So I think from that standpoint, especially when you look at the fact that there has been precedents set for this, right? You look at the compensations related to the Holocaust, even in American history related to the Japanese internment camps. I think the Japanese people had got like $20,000 in reparations in like 1988 or something like that. So the American government has paid out reparations before, because if the service has been done, you can't just really wash your hands of it because you participate in society. So I find that claim a bit weird to say. Now, the next claim I do think is a bit of a slam dunk, right? When you look at just crime in general, it's obviously correlated to poverty more times than not. You look at the fact that Black people in this country historically, through systemic racism, have been an underclass in this country. It's no surprise that people turn to criminality when they feel like they have no options of economic upward mobility, right? that doesn't really justify committing crime in the first place, obviously. So I just want to establish that. But you look at places like Baltimore and what's going on currently right now. It kind of shows the importance of having proper investments in youth programs in schools to really kind of show kids as they're growing up why they need to properly invest in their futures. Right? You look at how Baltimore is having, I think, like a 50-year low in terms of violent crimes. That doesn't happen by accident. You have to make a deliberate choice to pursue that. You look at things like over policing, stop and frisk. All of these things kind of damage trust in the police. And it's a bit funny when it comes to the whole over policing thing, because like in a sense there is over policing when it comes to finding like more petty criminals, but then you look at when it comes to like proper really bad crimes, like like unaliving someone, or just violent crime in general, there's actually like I think the conviction rate or finding like the suspect that did it in black crimes compared to white crimes is down by like 60%, right? I think it's like 80% for white violent offenders to be convicted if they can find them, or if solving the case, whereas the solving rate for black crimes is like 58%. And you look at that, and obviously you think about the no snitching thing that obviously comes from police distrust. So it's kind of like it's over policed in some sense, and then it's under policed for the things that actually matter. You also look at the fact that emergency services also just do worse in black cities in terms of getting to people on time or responding to violent crimes. So when the police actually have a chance to look good in black neighborhoods, they often fail to show up in that same way. So it's a bit tragic from that sense as well, and it really kind of gives certain criminals the sense that they can kind of get away with stuff. So it's a very nuanced thing to try to balance when looking at crime, black crime, and then how the police fits into that as well. Okay, then her next claim is that systemic racism isn't just a theory, that it's a lived reality and backed by data and history. And honestly, I think this is the easiest one to support. There are so many racial gaps in this country. I genuinely don't even have enough time to name them all. You look at things like disparities in school funding, biased algorithms in hiring. You look at the studies that talked about how black sounding names were less likely to get callbacks from hiring managers. You look at the over policing in black communities. You look at the fact that businesses will purposely put vices in black neighborhoods because that's where they expect to get most of their money from. You look at the negative outcomes of black people in the medical field. It's genuinely staggering. Like there's even more things I'm not thinking about right now. I just named all these things in like a couple seconds of thinking about it. I think what I really want to get across here is the fact that, because when people hear systemic, right, they automatically assume that it needs to be explicitly written. And what they don't realize is when someone says systemic, they're simply just saying that it's relating to a system, which means that these things operate together, right? That these things aren't just happening in a vacuum. Doesn't necessarily mean that some guys just writing a law down, like, okay, like we're gonna discriminate against black people this way, we're gonna do this. It's more so that these systems are already in play to not favor black people, and the government doesn't care enough to fix these disparities. So yeah, it's like when people hear that, they just think, oh, like it needs to be an explicit law, we're not in Jim Crow anymore, yada yada yada. And it's more like, no, you have to look at these gap in the outcomes and figure out what exactly is causing it. And I'm not even one of those people that would say that, oh, everything needs to be completely equal, and if there's any gaps, then it just automatically means that something nefarious is going on. But when you look at the fact that these gaps exist in so many different industries, so many different companies, so many different stratas, it can't all be a coincidence. So, which would imply that there's something more nefarious going on. But yeah, so I think for this specific point, I really don't think it's like that hard of an argument to make. And that's not even talking about things like implicit bias, talking about things like the media. I didn't even bring that up either. So, like, genuinely, I really don't think that this specific point is all that hard to support. Now, lastly, the final claim she makes is that Black conservatism fails to address the needs of the working class. So I think the first thing we should do, right, is to establish what does the working class Black household look like. So according to the census, the median Black household is just under $57,000. Or I guess $56,500 is a more apt way to describe that. And then based off of another alternative source I could find, it was around $54,000. So based off the sources I could find, you're looking annually from anywhere from $54,000 to $56,000. I thought what was interesting was to then compare that to the essential cost of like household, like essential. So just things that we need to like actually live. So things like housing, transportation, food. And what I found when I looked this up was that according to the research I could find, was that the average household is spending somewhere around $61,000 in yearly spending for essentials. Obviously, that's about a disparity of roughly $5,000 to $7,000, give or take. So obviously, basically, the Black household is just underwater. So what does that tell us about, what the needs of the Black working class is? So the first thing is that it would tell us is there's basically no financial cushion. If there's ever a rainy day, if there's ever an emergency, they're basically going into, I don't know if poverty is a bit of an exaggeration, but basically they're not going to be having a good time. You're also looking at the fact that they basically can't afford any change of any significance, whether it's coming to like negatively anyway, in terms of like health, financials. Like if someone like, I don't know, runs over their car or something breaks down in their house, they probably couldn't afford any type of like emergency budget in that sense either. So you're looking at all these things, and the question is, how would conservatism in general, specifically from a Black point of view, look to address those concerns? Now, if I were to be charitable to the conservative position on this, what they would probably encourage as a kind of a solution is to one, save as much as possible. So for example, you're looking at statistically the $300 spent on entertainment monthly. They'll probably argue that $300 is way too much. Obviously, that you should reduce that and put that towards some of the more important expenditures on here, which I don't necessarily like fully disagree with myself. They'll probably also make it a point to involve themselves in more trades, which I don't have the information on right now of how much different trade workers make and kind of the pros and cons of it. So I'm not going to like fully endorse or condemn that option at the moment because I just don't have that much information yet. They would probably also, if they're really feeling generous, they'd probably try to encourage like more financial literacy programs and policies, I guess, that and reward that. That would probably be my guess. Now, how much of that stuff would really go towards helping those specific needs that I listed out, that is a different conversation altogether. I guess those would be some of the things I would think from a conservative point of view would be how they would approach this specific gap in terms of cost to household earnings that I brought up. But my word, this video is long as hell, so that's going to be it for today, guys. I just kind of went through all the claims, kind of just gave my opinion on it, what I thought made sense. Guys, just let me know in the comments down below what you guys think, what your opinions are, and most importantly of all, remember to have a good